let's move into the all 32. Let's start with the Cleveland Browns, 3-14. I think out of all of the teams at the top of the draft this year, and let me know what you think. I think that they might be in the most challenging position out of everybody with their roster, who they have. Um, Maybe give me what you think about that, and then I have some stuff that I want to go over with you, and then we can get into more of the team stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they gave guaranteed money to a guy that they expected to be their franchise quarterback, and they have nothing remotely close to a franchise quarterback. Their
No,
best
they
player
don't.
wants to be traded. Um, I mean, and they're just in an absolutely horrible cap space situation. Um, I don't really know if it gets much worse than the Cleveland Browns from an offseason perspective because they've got so much work to do with almost no room to do anything.
I'm happy that you brought up Deshaun Watson and Myles Garrett because those were the two guys that were like my key points to what I was going to say. So the Deshaun Watson contract and trade, if you go back to it, it's the
Yeah.
worst in NFL history. I don't think it's close.
No.
Um, the void years in 2027, but the next 2 years they're completely stuck. It takes up 26.5% of the cap and over 172 million of dead cap hit if they were to like release them this year. The year after takes up 24 almost 25% of the cap and a $99 million dead cap hit. He obviously retore his Achilles. He hasn't looked the same in general since the allegations, the terrible allegations, and then obviously his continued injuries with like the shoulder. Like he just can't seem to stay healthy. Now, the next thing I want to throw into this is the Myles Garrett's piece of the equation. He's obviously requested a trade, like you said. His contract is up in 2026, which would be his age 31 season. He'll be 30 this year. Although a great player, you have to start to think that his production will continue to like go down, like arrow pointing down, unless if he's just generational. And I know, and I get, listen, I understand that the Browns fans are sitting here saying, I want a Godfather trade offer for Myles Garrett. I want firsts. I want a player, blah, 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 this, that, and the third. I have a proposal, and let me know what you think about it, where Myles Garrett wants a trade. There are some teams with a significant amount of cap on their books. Does it make sense for the Browns to work a way to include Deshaun Watson in one of these trades to a team with a lot of cap space who can go and trade for Myles Garrett? They throw in Deshaun Watson kind of as just like a throwaway contract, but they're able to take it on their books. And it would give that team an opportunity to get one of the best players at their position in the NFL as an edge rusher in Myles Garrett for a discounted price, draft capital wise. But what happens with the Browns is they might get only 1 second round pick or like a third or something like that along those lines. But the gift that keeps on giving is getting Deshaun Watson the fuck out of your building and getting the
Yeah.
contract completely off your books. Although it might not be that Godfather offer that you're thinking that you're about to get, how do you feel about that? Do you think that that's something that could possibly happen?
A few things. So first off, I think you have to find a team that's willing to take on any of that anything related to
Baggage.
Deshaun Watson, even if it's like from a player standpoint, from a salary standpoint, you got to find somebody that's okay with both of those. And then
Mhm.
second, I don't think there is a team that would go out there and say, yeah, we'll take the entire contract for a reduced trade package in return, even with Myles Garrett. I think that no matter what happens, these teams are not going to want 100% of that contract. I think the Browns are going to have to eat a lot of that still, but that's much better long term than
Would
having a
you
guy
even
like
take
that.
Would you even say, like, if they were like, we'll do a 60-40 split on this contract, like, it's got to be worth it for them?
Like the Browns eat 40 or the team
Yes,
getting Garrett
The
eats.
Browns eat 40. We'll take on 40% of the contract. You take 60, and we got clean hands on this situation. Just anything
I
to get Deshaun Watson out of the building.
I think that's way more enticing of a deal if you pair that with Myles Garrett, and then I think the trade return is just going to be 3 picks, because I look at it this way, like we saw Jared Goff and Matt Stafford and all these guys like get moved via trade and stuff like that, and we've seen guys get traded for a bunch of picks, but like it's mainly seems like it's quarterbacks. I don't know if you're going to get the same type of haul back from a team, even though it is one of the best defensive players in the NFL towards the end of like towards the back part of his prime, I would say. Is kind of how I'm looking at it. So I don't even know if I would come into it with the Browns as a Browns fan or a Browns front office and be like, all right, we're going to get an absolute haul for this guy. I just don't think that that's something that's going to happen, just because I think the quarterback position is like so much more coveted and can just completely re change the building. Like we
I think
saw
good.
Matt Stafford go in right away and win a Super Bowl. Like
Yeah, it's so hard. I think it's hard to put apples to apples with the quarterback
it
position,
is
but I think probably
anywhere,
the
and
deal.
quarterback in any other position.
I think the deal that makes the most sense is the Khalil Mack deal when he got traded from the Raiders and went to the Bears. The Bears sent 2 firsts, a sixth, and a third in 2020. So 1, 2, 3, 4 picks, 2 first round picks. I think that's closer to what we're thinking of here. But I think that if you're the Browns, how do you not sit there and just be like, honestly, give us your second this year, your second next year, and a fourth, and you take on 60% of this Deshaun Watson contract and take Myles Garrett? That gives an opportunity where they need to reset regardless. Like this
They
Browns
do.
team, like they just need to reset. You're in a division with Joe Burrow, you're in a division with Lamar Jackson, and the Steelers, although I hate them, they somehow are always like okay every single year. So I think that to see any real significant change in this organization is to kind of just we got to start fresh at this point.
Is there a team though that is a Myles Garrett? I know the NFL and the NBA aren't the same when it comes to trades, and it's I don't know how the Browns will end up doing it. I think they'll probably try to get the best available. But is there a world where they try to do good on Myles Garrett and him being there his entire career and try to trade him away to some type of contender?
No.
I don't know. I don't know. I think it's likely they just go best offer, but like
At a point,
that puts you in a scenario as all of these other teams like, okay, great, we have Myles Garrett now. We're maybe a few games better, and now we're also taking on 60% of a Deshaun Watson contract. Like, is this really worth it for us? And then
I do have the team.
but the upper echelon of teams, are they in a spot where they can afford to take on 60% and fully reap the benefits of having Myles Garrett? I don't know if there is a team.
I think that the 8-9 Cardinals, the team that went 8-9 last year in the NFC West, who started off super hot, has a ton of cap on their books right now, who can take on the Deshaun Watson contract. And whoever trade, the reality that everybody needs to remember at this point is whoever trades for Myles Garrett is going to have to pay him immediately.
Correct.
That's the point. So you need to be in a situation where you can handle both of those things.
That's
The
what I was. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that the team that could reap the benefits of having somebody like Myles Garrett is the Cardinals. They went 8-9 last season. Their defense was frisky the entire year. Their passing game wasn't the best, but their offense was top 10 DVOA the entire season. They play in a tough division with the San Francisco 49ers, the Rams, and the Seahawks. I mean, the Seahawks won 10 games and didn't make the playoffs. So I think that is a team, and it's a tight race, tight knit division. And I think getting an opportunity to get one of the best players in at their position on your team right now, even if he's about to be 30 years old, absolutely matters. So that's the team that I think makes the most sense. That's the dance partner in my head. And obviously, there's some other teams at the top who have the cap space to do it and all of that and could take on Myles Garrett and do all of this. But like you said, are they going to really reap the benefits of this? Probably not. But I think that the Cardinals made the playoffs two years ago when they started off the season like 10-1, and Kyler obviously tore his ACL, missed that middle of the season into the next middle of the season, finally had a full healthy year. They went 8-9. You add somebody who's an absolute X factor like that, they reap the benefits of getting somebody like that in the building.
Do we think are we giving the Browns too much credit for even considering the fact that they would try to work in trading Deshaun Watson?
I think that there are going to be teams in the NFL who are viewing this as an opportunity to get one of the best players in the league on their team at a discounted rate from a draft capital perspective, being able to keep all of your top draft picks, but being able to acquire one of those guys by looking at them being like, we will take that problem off of your hands.
That's not even my point of like, if another team doesn't bring it up is what I'm saying. Like,
I think
yes,
teams will bring it up.
do you think the Browns would even be like, all right, he already requested a trade. This whole Deshaun Watson thing isn't working.
No.
Maybe we can try and pair them together. Like, I don't even know if the Browns are smart enough to bring that up in conversations. Like,
I don't think
I
it's
agree with you saying that other teams would offer it, but
I don't think
I
they
don't even
want
know if
that offer. I don't think they want that offer. They want the Myles Garrett offer. They want 2 first-round picks, a sixth, and a third next year. Like, they want all the picks. Like,
they want the capital.
They're like, fuck this, like, whatever with Deshaun Watson. But at a point, like, if I'm a team right now and I could take on both these contracts and keep the integrity of the rest of my team as well and my draft capital, it's like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, we will take this problem off your hands, wipe it clean, take a draft quarterback at the top of the draft, and you'll never have to think of the Deshaun Watson contract ever again. It is the worst trade and contract in NFL history. Get that stench off of your franchise. That's what I'm offering. I think that they'll sit there and look at it and be like, fuck, like, I don't know. I really want those. I want those 2 firsts. Like, I want these picks.
They still have the second pick overall anyways. They're not going to have to give that up. And they're going to suck again next year. Like, they're going to have a top 5 pick again next season.
For sure. But back to your point,
regardless of Myles Garrett being there.
Back to your point, I don't think that it has anything to do with like being dumb or smart or whatever. I just think it's them being like, we really would probably like the most draft capital possible. I just think
in my eyes, that's dumb.
I think it sounds more appealing to get that contract, get the Deshaun Watson contract pretty much off your books, even if it's not 100% of it. If it's 75% of it, if it's 50% of it, it's probably going to be worth it for you over the next 2 years and get that like literal cancer out of your building.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I think it's dumb for them not to try to offload the Deshaun Watson contract for draft capital.
Yeah.
I think they're better off getting a guy like Deshaun Watson out of the building, off the books, and starting from scratch. Because even if you have Myles Garrett next season, what does it really mean? You're going to win 5 games again. Like, they're just not a good team, and they just don't have like the bones in place for that. And I understand you get better via draft capital, but you also can get better from not having one of the worst contracts in NFL history on your books.
100%. 100%. I'm right with you. You still get some picks anyway. It's just not the original deal that you thought.
Yeah, I'm following. But in another world, you could end up getting a first round pick for Myles Garrett.
Yeah,
Like
it's just if you're
removing, even if you don't offer the Watson part of it.
but you've seen the teams that have been linked to Myles Garrett, like even a Cardinals, like the Cardinals are picking at 16 this year. So like, is
Yeah.
it really worth giving up a first round pick to then sit there and be like, well, we're picking at 16, like blah, 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 whatever. Like, it's not like, unless if you were sending them to a spot where it's like what the Bears did with the Panthers, where the Bears went and had extra draft capital in the first round because of how bad the Panthers were.
Yeah,
So
that
maybe a
extra pick.
situation like that. As for the coaching staff and the front office, Stefanski and Tim Schwartz and their front office, like all stays the same.
Yeah.
I'm shocked by this personally. I think Stefanski, as much good as you hear about Stefanski and everything that goes on with him, like he's been to the playoffs like twice in his tenure, hasn't won like many like games once he got to the playoffs. Um,
In general, too, he hasn't really
yeah,
won many games.
I'm confused how he's never a topic of. I thought that he was going to get fired at the end of the season this year. Like midway through the season, I started saying that. I was like, the offense stinks. It's one of the worst offenses in the entire league, and Stefanski's supposed to be an offensive guy. Clearly they didn't have that. And then Jim Schwartz had like a generational run 2 years ago on defense that like we never shut up about. Nobody shut up about, where they won 11 games, but ultimately that defense, it varies so much from year to year that defense just looked way different this season than it did last year.
Yeah. Yeah. I like Stefanski. He's just in like a terrible situation. When he has like a relatively competent quarterback, they're decent. They're a decent football team, but they've
Let's look
just
real
been
quick.
they've just been bad. Like we both sit here and just harped on how bad Deshaun Watson has been, and when that's your quarterback week in and week out, like
Let's go over this here real quick. 2020 Stefanski's first year, he went 11-5. They won the wild card
Baker.
round against the Steelers, and then they lost in the divisional round to the Chiefs. Um, Next season, 8-9, obviously no playoff appearance there. Next year, 7-10, last in the division, obviously no playoff appearance there. Last year, 11-6, lost, absolutely got smacked in the wild card round against the Texans. And then this year, obviously 3-14 and missed the playoffs and are picking at the top of the draft. That resume that I just ran over with you with Stefanski, is that enough that you think that he should be completely safe? And the answer, obviously, the clear answer
Yeah,
is he probably shouldn't have been safe this year. And I would say that he's probably on the piping hot seat to start this season.
completely safe, no, but I think he's put together and what 2 or 3 decent seasons
To be exact.
to not be like completely kicked out of town yet. Like those years that they were bad, like they just had nothing. Like he just doesn't get put. He has not been put in a spot to succeed his entire coaching career from this front office, like head coaching career in Cleveland by this front office, and like
Well,
he's
I
just
I completely disagree. They went, you
they
trade
got
all
rid
your
of their best
picks.
quarterback in the NFL in their history of
Yeah, but
being a
you
team.
traded all your picks for a guy who you thought was gonna win and Stefanski can't coach Deshaun Watson up.
Deshaun Watson
I'm just saying, like,
hasn't had it
if
in
Stefanski
5 years.
but if Stefanski is as great of a head coach and an offensive mind that everybody's talking about, like Baker didn't look like that under Stefanski, like he does right now.
Bro,
Baker
you can't
and
coach a guy that doesn't want to be there.
Deshaun Watson looks like a complete shell of himself as well. Listen, you can talk. Listen, I hate Deshaun Watson too. He sucks. He's a bad human being. But something that you absolutely can't deny is he's relatively liked in the locker room. Like he is, every single person in the Cleveland Browns locker room seems to stick up for him. So like I get it. Like I hate Deshaun Watson too, but at a point, like it seems like the team likes the guy. Like the guy's in
But
the locker room.
if you don't want to be there, how can you coach a guy
How do
like
you know
that?
that? How do
It
you know
just
that Deshaun Watson
from
doesn't
what
leave?
we have seen on the outside is all I have to base it off of. It just seems like he's so
What indicates
uninterested.
that? What indicates that?
Sideline presence, that play on the field, uninterested
Get
in
out of
all times I've seen him in Cleveland.
you know where that stems from?
But
Your
this is
coaching
the
staff.
first time that that's
Your coaching
happened.
staff.
That's
That
the
coaching
first time.
I'm just saying right now that that coaching staff in Cleveland is way worse on paper than anybody gives it credit for. Everybody gasses it up. I don't hear anything bad said about Stefanski. He
I
needs
don't
to
think
start
he's
getting some criticism.
amazing. I agree.
He,
He deserves criticism. I don't think he's amazing. But I also don't think there's going to be too many coaches that have much success in Cleveland if they continue to run their team the way they are.
we'll see. We'll see. He's on the
We'll
hot seat
see.
this year.
I agree. I think he should be on
I
somewhat of a hot
I
seat.
personally
How can
think
you
that
not be
if I'm the
after going
Browns
3 and
owner,
14?
if I'm the Browns owner, and tell me if this is a fair statement or not. If I'm the Browns owner and I'm looking at what Stefanski has done over the last few years with this team, and especially the quarterback position, what he did with Baker Mayfield and what he did with Deshaun Watson is not impressive. Why would I want him to take a shot at the second overall pick if let's bring Cam Ward in here? I'm going to say the same thing later on in the episode when we talk about the New York Giants. What makes Kevin Stefanski the QB guru? You talk about all the time. Well, like I don't know if Josh McDaniels is the guy to be able to develop Drake May. It's like, well, why is Kevin Stefanski anybody who can develop any? He's never done it ever in his career.
I think that the front office in Cleveland valued those 2 seasons under Kevin Stefanski probably more than they should have.
Okay.
And like I said before, I don't think that Cleveland will have success until the entire front office is out of there. I just
Okay.
don't think they
That's
make
fair.
smart decisions.
That's complete. Listen, completely fair. I'm looking at his coaching, his coaching career since he's been in the NFL. He coached Kirk Cousins, he's coached Baker Mayfield, and he's coached Deshaun Watson, and none of those guys are good. So I just think that that's
Yeah.
something to really keep in mind when we're sitting here like talking about guys who can develop quarterbacks and somebody who's given such a long leash. I just flat think he just doesn't deserve it. So that's just what I think. To get into some of the guys who are leaving the team this offseason, Jameis Winston, Nick Chubb, Elijah Moore, Jedrick Willis, who was an original first round pick, but he's pretty inconsistent. Devin Bush, McLeod, like honestly, no one that crazy in here. I think that you live without all of these guys in your locker room. I get Nick Chubb as a name, but at this point in his career and his injuries, I just think it's probably over.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's had too much to come back from to even remotely expect to have this, what, 3/4 of the version of Nick Chubb that we once saw.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's unfortunate because he was once great, but I think if you're Cleveland, you're fine with him walking, and Cleveland will probably sign him to a long-term deal.
No chance. No
I know.
chance.
I'm just being a dick, but I
The
don't.
Eagles.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think any of those guys. You're really like, all right. I'm sad that they're leaving.
No, not at all. They obviously have the second overall pick in the draft. Something that's been crazy is they've been linked to Kirk Cousins. These teams cannot help themselves for whatever reason. I don't understand it in any way, shape, or form.
It's
Don't
the
bring Kirk
most
Cousins in.
confusing thing.
Don't bring Kirk Cousins into your building, whatever you do. Is there a player that you would like to see the Cleveland Browns take with the number 2 overall pick this season?
Yeah. I mean, if he's there, I think if you end up trading Myles Garrett, I want them to take. I don't want them to take Abdul Carter, but I think it makes sense for them if you're not like sold on one of these guys at quarterback. I think the likely move is they probably go with the quarterback because that's. I don't know how they're going to bring in anybody with this current cap situation, and I just don't think that the options out there at quarterback are like formidable for the future. I think you know what you're going to get with a lot of those free agents. I think that just the fact of having a rookie guy in there can bring different energy to a building and can give like a sense of like, all right, maybe we have something. I don't think you necessarily get that with a defensive player or any other player for that matter, besides quarterback. So I think they probably go quarterback, but I could see a world where they take Abdul Carter if they trade away Myles Garrett.
See, I
Cam
think
Ward
that
is
like
kind of what I'm thinking for
yeah.
them.
Yeah, it seems like that the overwhelming consensus within like the draft community is just that like it's that like the Browns are like the worst at playing their hand at any of this and they're taking Cam
Yeah.
Ward. So not much of a conversation there to be had. I don't think so. But yeah, I think that like as of right now, unless if something drastically changes within the combine, which is happening within, I think, the next 2 weeks, I forget which date, I think that it's probably pretty safe to say that Cam Ward's probably their guy.
Yeah, I think that's probably what we'll end up seeing.
Unless if the Titans take him.
I just don't know what I think. I just don't know.
I think that this is a quarterback team, no doubt. Whoever falls to them, if Cam Ward goes first, they're taking Shedeur Sanders. If whoever goes first, they're taking a quarterback right after. I think that it's like a non-negotiable for them as a quarterback team. It's like Deshaun Watson retores Achilles. He's torched. If they go and bring in, even if they do go ahead and bring in like a Kirk Cousins on like a super cheap deal, that's completely fine. You don't want two quarterbacks who are like Deshaun Watson's 30, Kirk Cousins is 36, 37 years old. I forget how old, with it also with an Achilles injury.
Yeah, you don't want that.
That being your quarterback room with DTR, which is he's ranked 44th on my big board of quarterbacks who've played this season. Like they're drafting a quarterback. They absolutely have to. It's kind of a non-negotiable at this point, I think.
I mean, I have their team needs listed as quarterback. Their entire running back room is not coming back. They just released Deontay Foreman yesterday, or Naheem Hines, whatever, one of them, and then edge, because I'm assuming they're going to trade Myles Garrett.
Oh, I thought you said Edge, like the WWE wrestler Edge. I know you know
Well,
what I'm talking about, right?
I did say Edge. You're technically right.
I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
They released Edge.
They're bringing him in to play safety.
I'm right. I'm 100% with you on all of that. But do you have anything else that you want to add in about the Cleveland Browns? Or
I saw that their cap space situation is negative $34,233,395, and that's astonishing.
They're screwed.
Yeah.
They need to make that's. Hey, remember that. Go back to the original trade that I made earlier on in this show, in this episode.
Yeah.
That's why I think that they are desperate to make some moves. But I think that that's it for the Cleveland Browns.
I think so too.
White clouds blowing out when we max 4-5, not the size, but it